Now, in this particular sequence here, we return to Connor and dealing with the android who turned deviant and murdered his owner. And there's some really cool motion capture going on in this scene, and the detail on the android is really good, and you might actually recognize the actor. It's such a good graphical sequence. Now obviously he doesn't respond well to humans, so we're going to send in Connor to see if we can extract some more information from him. Now, it is possible to get him to do various things, so I've tried to do something slightly different in this playthrough, and we'll see how that pans out. Now, the other cop in this scene here, he's a total douchebag who hates Hank and Connor, so yeah, any opportunity to stick one to him is always well worth it. Anyway, as you can see here, we're discussing the law whereby deviants respond to stress, and one of the things that deviants have been known to do is self-destruct. So, you know, they jump off cliffs or stab themselves, or some other form of sort of android suicide. So anyway, Connor's basically requested to go in, and he gets his way, and he never fails. So obviously if he does fail, he's going to start questioning his programming, and in fact Cyberlife might decide to replace him if he's too ineffective. So you've always got this interesting push-pull with Connor as to, do you want him to succeed or do you want him to fail? And there's various bits here, so I've done a scene scan because the first time I played this I didn't realise there was a file you could browse through, so it was quite nice to discover that on my second playthrough. And there's lots of little details like that it's very easy to miss, as I mentioned I think in the first time you got to play with Connor. Now we're at some stage going to sit down and interrogate our little android buddy here and see what we can get from him. Now, for some reason, when I've been playing Connor, I've been having all sorts of control problems, which I didn't have on the first playthrough. I think it was being used to this scene. I was a bit lazy on some of the button presses, and that's one thing you do need to watch out for with the game, that when it gives you an icon, you have to press and hold the button quite often for it to fill up, and if you just quickly press it, it doesn't always recognize your press, so you do have to be careful of that. So we're gathering a load of data here, and you know, if I was spending a little bit more time lurking on these reveals, you'd see that he's been abused by his owner and damaged by his owner, and this is definitely an android who's been mistreated. And as you can see, we're trying to reach optimal stress, so that little bracket there, we're trying to get the stress meter right into there so that he breaks and confesses without kind of committing suicide. So I've decided to confront him with pictures of his owner, and obviously depending on your approach, the android will be more or less receptive to your questioning, and it's very well done, this scene actually. I really enjoyed my first play through it, and I had a lot of fun playing through it here, doing totally different steps with more or less success than my first playthrough. And yeah, the close-up shots here, again, I keep going on about the graphics, but you just can't get past. This is probably one of the best looking games on the PlayStation 4, and this is in-game engine, this is not CGI. It does sort of obviously have a fairly scripted graphic layout, so it makes it a bit easier for them to up the quality than maybe like a Call of Duty type game, but it's still very impressive. And you know, you're doing kind of good cop, bad cop. Now, as you see, because I've been so nice to him, his stress has dropped, so you've got to be nasty enough to push his stress up. Now, I think I try and probe his memory in a second, and I did have some major problems with my controller at this point, so yeah, we might not succeed on our memory probe, so if I remember correctly it will come up. But here you go, I'll let you listen to this bit.
What are they gonna do to me? They're gonna destroy me, aren't they?
They're going to disassemble you to look for problems in your biocomponents. They have no choice if they want to understand.
Now, I think that was brilliantly played there. You got the low, quiet witness, and he's really kind of desperate to be alive. I mean, you can see that he is aware that he's been viewed as a machine, but he doesn't feel that way about himself. And Connor is brilliantly played here, very robotic, not really caring about the plight of his fellow android. So yeah, I do enjoy this scene with both us again, the mocap and the actual acting, and it really allows the voiceover artists to actually properly act, because of course they actually sit down in a green room with all these little dots on their faces and talk to each other, and just brilliant. And a lot of people have said they'd love Connor to have more of a part in the game and have the game more focused around him, and that would be a really cool spin-off game to do a Connor focused one. So anyway, as you can see, I'm trying to get absolutely optimal stress here, but I keep getting it close to where I want, but not bang on where I want. So anyway, I just choose to terrify him, and that should push his stress up. And of course, the danger is if you push too far, he's going to freak out and shut down and try and kill himself. If you're too nice, equally that makes him calm. So you see, I'm right on the edge there. I think I'm going to break him. So I didn't get a chance to continue. So you've got to be a little bit careful here. So unfortunately for Connor, he is struggling. So right, let's try and probe. And as I say, I think this goes a bit wrong here. I pressed R1 again rather than R2. I keep doing that. And then some of these key combinations are a nightmare, because you like R2, circle, R1, that's quite a contortion to do on your hand. And then suddenly you've got to do the square as well. It's like, come on. So obviously you can do this, but it's deliberately tough. It's like you've failed, and he's resisting. And there you go. Being a deviant, he's able to resist better than a normal android would be able to. And this is a little bit of a shock to Connor. And yeah, we're going to have to give up. So I'm afraid, Connor, you've failed this mission. Now, in some ways that's good, because, you know, Cyberlife are a bunch of douchebags and Connor works for them, so that's quite good fun. Unfortunately, it's bad because it allows our douchebaggy cop to come in and decide to muck around with the android. And as I say, Hank's got actually a bit of sympathy for the androids. Now, as you can see here, the cops are mistreating the android, and Connor's a bit concerned, and not out of sympathy for the android, but from a sort of solving the case point of view.
You don't understand. If it's
So here you go.
self-destruct, we won't
Connor
get
is
anything out of
desperate
it. I
to
told you to
preserve
shut
the
your
evidence.
fucking mouth. Chris, you gonna move this asshole or what? I'm trying. I can't let you do that. Leave it alone now. I warned you, motherfucker. That's enough. Mind your own business.
So here you go. We've got a nice bit of sort of Reservoir Dog stuff going on here, with guns being pointed everywhere. Now this guy obviously really just wants to blat Connor, and he doesn't have much time for Hank. And he's a right ambitious arsehat, so it'd be lovely if Connor could like chuck him off a roof or something. Maybe he can. I haven't come across that bit. So anyway, Connor is trying to get the android to confess, but yeah, it's interesting that you've got this as a potential option. I did in another playthrough over-egg the stress a bit, and our witness here took rather drastic measures over that, and I've seen some really fun playthroughs where this android interacts with Connor in a really cool way. So as I say, this scene here, I've seen 4 or 5 variations just in this one scene, and that's what I love about the game. Anyway, that's it for this one. See you in the next scene.